Welcome to this AQA GCSE Geography revision blast. Today we are focusing on urban. We're looking at it from an LIC and an NEE context. This is part of the Urban Issues and Challenges unit that you will see on paper 2. So let's start off. We are first going to be looking at a round of missing vowels. You have 5 of these to work out, and these are key terms that you should know. However, each of them has had their vowels removed, so you just need to try and work out what they are. Okay, have we worked the first one out yet? So this one is quite tricky because it does have a lot of vowels in it. Let's see. It is urbanisation. So urbanisation is the increasing proportion of a country's population living in urban areas. Number 2. Okay, have we worked this one out yet? It is megacity. So a megacity is a city with 10 million or more inhabitants. Okay, this one looks a bit easier. It has slightly fewer vowels, so therefore not quite so many missing letters. Okay, if we worked it out, it is migration. So it is one of the reasons why urbanisation is happening. So migration is all about moving from one place to the other. Okay, number 4. So this is another reason that we are seeing an increasing rate of urbanisation. Okay, if we worked it out, let's reveal. It is natural increase. So this is the difference between the birth and the death rate. And if the birth rate's higher than the death rate, then our population is naturally going to increase in size. And that is what we are seeing across the world in lots of low-income countries and lots of newly emerging economies where healthcare means that people are living longer, so therefore the death rate is lower. Right, our last one. So this is something that you find in many cities across the world. And it is linked to migration and natural increase. Let's have a look. It is a squatter settlement or an informal settlement. Sometimes they're also known as slums, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in this revision blast. Okay, let's move on to a higher-lower activity. We are looking at the world's largest megacity. So we're starting off with Shanghai. Shanghai has a population of 27.05 million people. Right, let's have a look at our next megacity. This is Sao Paulo in Brazil. You've got to decide whether it has a higher or lower population than Shanghai. So just give you a moment to have a think. Okay, let's have a look. It is lower, so it has 22.04 million people. Right, let's have a look at our next city. We've got Delhi in India, also known as New Delhi. It's the capital of India. Is the population higher or lower than Sao Paulo? Let's reveal. It is 30.29 million, so it is significantly higher. Right, let's have a look at our last city. We're looking at Tokyo this time. So is Tokyo higher or lower than 30.29 million? Okay, let's have a look. It is higher, so it is our world's most popular city with 37.39 million people. Well done if you got those correct. Okay, we're going to move on to a red herring activity. So for each of these, you will see 4 items. One of them will be the odd one out. You need to work out what it is and why. So our first one here is economic development, location, so rivers and coasts, crime rate, and migration, rural to urban. Which one of those is the odd one out and why? Okay, just give you a minute to have a think. Okay, let's have a look. It is crime rate. So the others are things that affect the rate of urbanisation. So economic development, location, i.e. by a river or a coast, or migration all increase the rate of urbanisation. Right, number 2. We've got improvements to healthcare, less children needed for farming, high proportion of adults below 35, and a more reliable food supply. So which one of these is the odd one out and why? If you need a little bit more time to work it out, then please pause the video. So what do we think? Okay, let's reveal the answer. The others are reasons for natural increase. So our odd one out is that less children are needed for farming. So improvements to healthcare, high proportion of adults below 35, and a more reliable food supply are all reasons for natural increase. Right, we have one more red herring to go. We've got the rise in squatter settlements, increase in tourist numbers, pressure on services, and pollution issues, for example, air quality and waste disposal. Which one of those is the odd one out and why? Okay, let's have a look. It is the increase in tourist numbers. The others are all problems caused by urbanisation. Right, we're going to move on now to a round of categorise. So we are going to give you 60 seconds to separate the key phrases that you can see down the side of the screen into push factors from the countryside and pull factors into low-income cities. So we've got push factors, so things that make you want to leave, and pull factors attract you to a place. Let's go. Okay, let's have a look. So our push factors in the countryside are farming is hard and poorly paid, there are few doctors or hospitals, poor harvest may lead to malnutrition or famine, and isolated due to poor roads. So all of those factors make life quite difficult in the countryside. And our pull factors are there are more well-paid jobs, public transport is better, range of entertainments are available, and there are better medical facilities. So well done if you got those in the correct columns. Okay, so that slightly horrific alert is a reminder that for this part of the specification, you need to have studied one city in particular. Okay, you need to know lots about that. You may be asked about it as part of a 6-marker. It may also come up specifically as your 9-mark question. So on the screen, we have got Rio. So lots of you will have studied Rio in Brazil as your newly emerging economy city. Some of you might have studied Lagos in Nigeria, and lots of you will have studied Mumbai in India. There are other cities that you may have studied, but those 3 tend to be the most popular across the country. Although our next activity isn't focusing on Rio specifically, it's focusing on any type of city like this, it is just a reminder that you do need to know some specific details. So, for example, you will need to know details about a specific scheme that aims to improve life for the urban poor. You will need to know about some specific characteristics of an informal settlement that you have studied. You will need to know some specific challenges in providing services. So that leads us nicely into this activity, which is a 4, 3, 2, 1 activity. We would like 4 characteristics of informal settlements. We would like 3 challenges of providing services. We would like 2 improvements that would increase the quality of life. And we would like 1 named example of an informal settlement. So I'm using the term formal settlement here rather than squatter settlements and rather than slums. The spec that you've studied was written quite a few years ago now, and there is more and more discussion about some of the key terms used in GCSE Geography and whether they are still appropriate or whether they're a bit patronising. So we're moving away from the term slums because slums sort of imply that there is absolutely nothing positive in these areas of in these residential areas, which is not the case. We are tending to move a little bit away from squatter settlements as well, because squatter settlements implies that nobody has the right to live there, which is not the case. In some of these areas, people do actually own their homes, they own the land that they live on. We are tending to use informal much, much more, but please be aware that in the exam you still may see the term squatter settlement and you still may see the term slums. Right, you have got 2 minutes to try and work out 4 characteristics of informal settlements, 3 challenges of providing services, 2 improvements that would increase the quality of life, and 1 named example of an informal settlement. Off you go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, how did you get on? Let's have a look. We'll start off with our 4 characteristics of informal settlements. So we've got informal housing, often not permanent and often poorly constructed. Dense concentrations of housing people, so they are quite crowded. There is often a lack of access to basic services such as clean water and sanitation, and there are often rates of crime. So, for example, your criminal gangs. Now, I've been really careful here to use the term often because we don't want to make sweeping statements about what these settlements are actually like. Number 3, we've got 3 challenges of providing services. So the population is rising so rapidly, it's difficult to cope with demand. There is a lack of money to invest. Authorities do not have funds because less tax is paid as many people work informally within the squatter settlements. And it's also difficult to build services for people after a squatter settlement is already built. Right, we are looking for 2 improvements that would increase the quality of life. So make streets wider so emergency vehicles and waste trucks can get in. This would improve the level of hygiene, particularly in terms of the waste trucks, so there'd be less disease. And install street lighting and a reliable electricity supply so people feel safer and they're not using dangerous fuels as well, which obviously if you're using dangerous fuels like oil lamps, then they can catch fire. That can spread really quickly around those crowded settlements. Right, our last one, one named example of an informal settlement. So we've got Daveri in Mumbai in India, for those of you that have done that case study, Makoko in Lagos in Nigeria, and then we've got Rashina in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Some of you may also have looked at Kibera in Nairobi in Kenya, although that does tend to be more of a lower school case study than the others. Right, we're going to move on to a round of altered vowels this time. So each of the key aspects of informal settlements shown have had the vowels changed to a different one. You just need to work out that key aspect. Let's go. Okay, so our first one is on the screen here. So it looks really tricky. So this is more about sort of a location here. Have you worked it out? So we have built on steep slopes. So often these squatter settlements are built on the sides of, on the edges of urban areas. And that tends to be on steep slopes, particularly in a city such as Rio, which is surrounded by great big hills and mountains. Now, building on steep slopes isn't particularly easy. It also is quite dangerous because if you have heavy rainfall, then you can have landslides when the houses get washed down the steep slopes. Right, number 2. Hopefully this one is a little bit more easy. Okay, have you worked this one out? They are built from recycled materials, so lots of scrap is reused, so scrap metal, corrugated iron roofs, for example, there's lots of wood. So they are seen as actually quite a sustainable way to build, although because they are made from recycled materials with no sort of building controls, then often they are not built to very high standards, so they don't last very long and they're not able to protect people from extreme weather events, for example. Right, next one. This is tricky. Now, if you study the Rio case study, this is a massive issue here, and you might have seen photographs of a wooden pole with lots and lots and lots of wires attached to it. So think about what that wooden pole was, what the wires were for. Okay, if we worked it out, it is a legal electricity supply. So in some settlements across the world, people hook up wires illegally to electricity poles. This means that the supplies have huge extra demand placed on them. It causes all sorts of blackouts because it's just, it's obviously not very safely done and is completely illegal. It's also quite dangerous because it could cause lots of fires. Right, what about this one? So think about a problem that's caused by the fact that the streets in informal settlements are often really, really, really narrow, so you can't get certain vehicles in. Have we worked it out? Yeah, it is uncollected rubbish. So big waste trucks find it really difficult to get into these settlements, meaning that you have huge builds up of rubbish, and which leads to all sorts of health issues. Right, our final one is something quite positive. So hopefully a little bit easier. Have we spotted it? It is sense of community. So one thing that we do often find in these sorts of settlements is that there is quite a good sense of community. People are sort of, rallying around, and people are sort of working together to improve their own quality of lives. Right, let's move on to mend the gap. So we have this question here: why does the quality of life in informal settlements need to be improved? What we need to do is complete the text provided by adding the missing words. So let's have a look. Now, what we would like you to do is to pause the video. You need to read through. You have got 5 words that are missing, and the number of dashes signifies the length of those missing words. So what we need you to do is we need you to pause the video, have a read through, try and work out what's missing. When you think you've got all 5, then unpause the video and we will go through them with you. Okay, have you worked them out? Or have you paused the video? Because if you haven't paused the video, we are about to reveal. Okay, let's have a look. So the quality of life in some squatter settlements is poor and needs to be improved because they have high death rates and infant mortality rates, as due to a lack of basic services such as clean water supplies, which increases the risk of cholera or dysentery. Furthermore, low literacy rates result from a lack of schools, which mean fewer chances of well-paid employment, trapping people in a cycle of poverty. Finally, residents have a lower life expectancy as they often live in heavily polluted environments due to a lack of waste collection and poor sanitation. If you got all of those correct, well done. Right, we're now going to move on to an unbalanced activity, and we're thinking about people working in the informal sector. This is a huge issue across low income country cities, but also newly emerging economies as well, despite the fact that their economies are stronger. So when we're thinking about the informal sector, we're thinking about jobs that perhaps don't have, jobs that perhaps are not official. So think about the benefits of working in the informal sector, but also the drawbacks. So what I would like you to do firstly is to pause the video and think of 2 benefits of people working in the informal sector. Off you go. If you haven't paused, then please do, because we are just about to reveal the answers here. Okay, let's have a look. So 2 benefits of people working in the informal sector are that workers get to keep 100% of what they've earned. Like many people in this country get quite cross that there are so many deductions taken out of their monthly salary. And informal jobs such as sifting through rubbish on the municipal dump means that lots of materials that would go to waste are reused, and that's really important. So Dharavi in Mumbai is a really good example of this, where 80% of all rubbish is recycled, which compares really favourably to countries like the UK, where on average it's about 40%, and in some cities like London it's actually lower than 20%. Right, we're going to now think about the 2 drawbacks of people working in the informal sector. There are more than 2, but we're just looking for 2. So pause the video, have a think about what are some of the issues with people working in the informal sector. Okay, if you haven't already done so, then please pause the video. Let's reveal the answers. So firstly, workers have no employment security or rights. So for example, they have no sickness benefits. They also have, in terms of that lack of security, they might not know whether they're going to go to work that day or not. So a really good example of this is in lots of cities around the world, places like Rio, places like Lagos, people will go and stand by the side of the road for the morning, hoping that they are going to get picked for the day by maybe like fruit pickers on the outskirts of the city who turn up with a bus and they pick the number of workers they want. So somebody could stand there for hours and hours hoping that they're going to be picked for work and find that they're not. And obviously if they don't work that day, then they get no income, and that can cause all sorts of problems. There is also an issue around the fact that informal jobs means that less tax is being paid. So if less tax is being paid, there is less money for the local government to invest in important services that would improve the quality of life. So for example, healthcare services or education. Well done if you got those. Right, we're going to move on to a round of true or false. And our first statement is almost a quarter of the world's inhabitants live in slums. Is this true or false? Let's have a look. It is true. Well done if you got that correct. Number 2. All houses in squatter settlements are built illegally. True or false? Okay, let's reveal. It is false. Okay, particularly when schemes have taken place to try to improve the quality of life of the urban poor. So Rashina in Rio, for example, when the favela barrio scheme took place, lots of people were able to actually buy the land that they were living on. Dharavi in Mumbai is considered to be the world's largest slum. Is this true or false? Let's have a look. It is true. So it is considered to be. Unfortunately, in squatter settlements, it is really difficult to have accurate numbers of the population living there. So therefore, it's kind of guesswork. And in particularly in Mumbai in India, because of COVID, the most recent census hasn't taken place. So census data in India is actually sort of 13, 14 years out of date now. So lots of it is done by guesswork. Right, number 4. Dharavi in Mumbai generates over $650 million each year. Is this true or false? It is true. So this is linked to the figure that I gave earlier of 80% of people. Sorry, 80% of things getting recycled in Mumbai. So loads of this is generated by the informal economy, where people are sifting through waste. They're looking at what's valuable, what can be resold. They're stripping down products. They're making things that are new. So this is a really important thing for Dharavi in particular, but also lots of these informal settlements across the world. Right, last true or false statement. Squatter settlements are usually built on old industrial sites close to the city centre. Is this true or false? Okay, let's have a look. It is false. So although there are some that are built close to the city centre, generally they are on the periphery, they're right at the edge, and it does mean that local governments can kind of sort of forget about them, that idea of being out of sight, out of mind. Whereas if they're right in the centre, then they are causing more problems to the government because they are taking what they might class as valuable land in terms of the economy. And in some cases where that has happened, the local governments have bulldozed those sites and tried to force people out. Right, our last activity is multiple choice questions. So we have got a number of these questions for you to work through. The first one is, which of the following is the best definition of urbanisation? A, the movement of people from urban to rural areas. B, the movement of people from inner city to suburban areas. C, an increasing proportion of a country's population living in rural areas. And D, an increasing proportion of a country's population living in urban areas. Okay, let's have a look. It is D. Right, number 2. Which of the following is a rural push factor? Better healthcare, educational opportunities, mechanisation of agriculture, increased employment opportunities. So is it A, B, C or D? Let's reveal. It is mechanisation of agriculture, so the idea that less workers are going to be needed. Number 3. Which of the following is an urban pull factor? Is it lack of clean water, B, access to healthcare, C, mechanisation of agriculture, D, conflict? Okay, let's have a look. It is B, access to healthcare. So a positive thing that's making people want to move. 4. What is a megacity? A city with a population of at least 5 million. B, a city with a population of at least 1 million. C, a city with a population of 10 million or over. Or D, a city with a population of over 20 million. Let's reveal. It is C, so it's 10 million or more. And our last question is, which continent has the largest number of mega cities? Is it A, Asia, B, Africa, C, South America, or D, Europe? Okay, let's reveal. It is Asia. Well done if you got those correct. Right, well done for getting to the end of the revision blast. So we have covered a number of activities looking at different aspects of urbanisation from a low-income country or newly emerging economy context. Please have a look at the Revision Blast playlist because we have these in place, all of the smaller topics that make up your big units, that make up both of your papers. And the last thing for me is to wish you the very best of luck across your paper 1, 2 and 3 exams.